everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Ayman, and this is actually like the start of a new series on here called True Crime Thursday, which you obviously read from the title, so I don't have to explain that to you. Now, I'm a huge true crime fan, you guys. I listen to serial killer podcasts before I sleep, which is kind of psycho. I've watched every true crime documentary on Netflix. Like, that shit literally runs through my veins like crack. Now, every week I'm gonna go into depth on one specific case just so you don't have to. Now, this case is one I became familiar with around 4 years ago, and I never really got closure on it. And to also celebrate the vanishing at the Cecil Hotel coming out last week on Netflix, I thought it would be fun to start the show with none other than the case of Elisa Lam, the victim. The daughter of Hong Kong immigrants, Canadian-born Elisa Lam was studying at the University of British Columbia, and she would post on her Tumblr Nouvelle Nouveau multiple times a day. She bared her soul on that blog, and it was almost like her diary of sorts. Having already been diagnosed with type 1 bipolar disorder, which is the more severe type that can actually include psychosis, as well as depression, Lam was taking around 4 medications a day. In 2012, her mental health took a turn for the worse, and you can see in her own blog post that she really struggled with her mental illness, which I feel like we can all relate to. She didn't like relying on medicine for her brain chemistry to be stable, and I feel like any mental health sufferer can agree that it does take a toll, even if it is helpful. Now, the ongoing struggle caused Elisa's schooling to suffer. She started missing classes to the point of dropping out of them completely, and she withdrew from school. Feeling lost, unmotivated, directionless, and in a state of real despair, she decided the best thing she could do was to travel the West Coast alone and sort of find herself. Her parents worried for her, but let her go anyway, on the one condition that she'd have to call them every day and let them know that she's okay. She set off for California, visiting Amtrak and San Diego, before eventually checking into the stay on Main part of the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles. And now what was meant to be a few days retreat turned into something a lot more horrific. Elisa was set to check out of the hotel on the 1st of February to then continue on to Santa Cruz, but she never left the hotel. Now we've explored the victim, we have to explore the location. The Cecil Hotel. It would be unfair to go into her case without explaining the epicenter of dark occurrences that is the Cecil Hotel. Firstly, location. The Cecil Hotel is located in the heart of Skid Row, which houses the biggest homeless population in the US. The whole area covers around 50 blocks and attracted lower income populations as far back as the 30s because of the social services and residential hotels that were located in the area. By the mid-70s, state officials had dubbed it a containment zone where they just tolerate the homeless population. The Cecil was a place where the people in the area would come and stay because of how cheap it was. Sometimes a room would be as cheap as $1.50 a night back then, which is nothing. It was used for prostitution, drug addicts, and just quite shady, dangerous people. And no, I'm not saying all homeless people are dangerous or shady, but the things that went on at the hotel were not good. Residents would say the first few floors were okay to roam around on, but rarely did they venture onto the higher floors since people would get killed up there. There have been murders at the hotel, suicides. It's unknowingly how serial killers like Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, and Jack Utenvega, who had also lured their victims to the hotel. In order to rebrand the hotel, 3 or 4 of the middle floors had been renovated and changed into the Stay on Main Hotel, which is more for student travelers, backpackers, and it had its own entrance and everything, its own lobby, its own rates. But the one thing that was common for the residents of the Cecil Hotel and the Stay on Main guests were the elevators, which all residents would use. Now just think of 21-year-old Elisa Lam traveling on her own for the first time, very impressionable, staying in a place like Stay on Main in the heart of one of the most dangerous places in LA. This was not a safe space for her to begin with. Now that we're done with backstory, what was the case? Elisa's parents reported her as missing to the LAPD after not receiving any calls from her for a few days, and the fact that she never checked out of the hotel. Now, Lam was a responsible girl. She wouldn't just disappear without telling her parents where she was going. With the reputation of the hotel and the fact that a Canadian Canadian girl had disappeared from the area, the LAPD started investigating hardcore. Now, the first thing they did was check her room, which was a mess, but all her belongings were still there. Her passport, her wallet, her prescribed medication, her clothes. Nothing had been stolen, and it didn't look like she had been taken away from her room forcibly. The police and their canine dogs searched parts of the hotel and the roof, but to no avail. Next, the police thought to review the CCTV camera footage from the hotel. In just all-around bad luck, there was no camera station on Elisa's floor, so they had to go through hundreds of hours of footage of all the other footage, hoping to find her somewhere in there. And they actually did. They found her accepting a package from two men and taking it upstairs, which we later found out was just a package of books, so nothing shady there. Now, the next bit of footage was the infamous elevator video, which I think by now everyone and their mum has seen. The footage was taken from a different floor, and you can see that something is very clearly wrong. Lisa looks paranoid. She looks like she's hiding from someone or something. She's pressing all the buttons in the elevator as she gets in. She's doing these sort of weird hand movements, either talking to someone or talking to something that isn't there. The whole thing is just very hard to understand. Here's a bit of the clip. Now, I just find the whole thing very extremely eerie and unsettling just to think about this was the last time she was seen alive. Since the LAPD had made this footage public, people were speculating whether she had a pursuer, perhaps she was on something, or she was maybe just hallucinating. Now, keep in mind, this elevator was on the top floor below the roof, and remember how I said the higher the floor, the more dangerous it is? There was no footage of her leaving the hotel, which meant she was still inside somewhere, dead or alive. About 2 weeks later, guests of the hotel had been complaining that the water pressure in the bathrooms was quite low. It would fluctuate from high to low, but the weirder part was that the water was black and tasted odd. Maintenance employee Santiago Lopez went to the water tanks on the roof to survey the situation and fix it, and came upon the naked body of Elisa Lam. Like, I just think that's so terrifying, and especially, I just get sad thinking about how worried her parents must have been. Keep in mind, this is the first time they're sending their daughter, who is only 21, out to travel alone. They don't know where she is, like, they don't know the kind of area that she's in, and just to imagine getting the news that your daughter has now died or been murdered, but her body has been found, is just like, I can't even comprehend. So now that we've talked about the girl, the location, and the case, now let's get into some of the theories about what could have happened to her. Now, you guys probably have a lot of questions, like, why the fuck didn't the police find her body the first time when they went and searched the roof? Does that mean her body was planted there afterwards? Why did the elevator doors not close despite her waiting for them to close for 2 whole minutes? Was her pursuer holding the door open? Maybe some of the theories will actually answer some of your questions. Now, theory number 1. Now, the first theory, which is one that I think most people jump to straight away when learning about the case, is that Elisa Lam was clearly murdered and her assailant deposited her body in the water tank. Now, the information that the LAPD shared with the public was that the latch of the water tank was closed when Lopez found her, and there was no way she could have gotten in there herself and somehow closed the hatch behind her. There was no way she could have even reached. When the canine sniffers picked up her scent, they followed it to a window and lost it after that. But that window had a fire escape outside that went straight onto the roof. Keep in mind, any other way to get to the roof had a lock and alarm on it, which would have sounded had she used those means. Hence, she must have used a fire escape, or her assailant must have. Now, say if she was running from someone, then maybe she opened the window and went up the fire escape, but the person caught up to her. From the elevator footage, she looks terrified. She hides in the corner of the elevator, hoping to not be seen. Elisa quickly pokes her head out and looks from side to side as if looking for someone. Then comes the question of how the hell did she even get the tank lid open? It weighed 20 pounds. I mean, did she really climb up there to escape from someone and then jump in? There were no bruises or trauma found on her body, so she wasn't killed somewhere else and then dragged to the water tank, since that would have caused a lot of damage to her body. She was naked when she was found with her clothes at the bottom of the tank, but there was no evidence of a sexual assault. Why why was she naked? The way her body was found is very similar to the plot of the movie Dark Water, so a lot of people theorized a fan of the movie was staying at the hotel and preyed on young Elisa Lam simply because she was an easy target and they could. Theory number 2. The second theory revolves solely around the elevator footage, and it was mostly the interweb investigators who found the details that would have been missed otherwise. Firstly, the timestamp of the video has been purposely tampered with. The timestamp has been construed to the point it doesn't even measure the seconds correctly. If you've seen the full video, then you also know that Elisa was only in the first 2.5 minutes. She's not even in the full thing. But after she leaves the elevator, there's about a minute or a minute and a half that has been cut from the video, which could have shown her going back and forth or even shown her assailant. But the LAPD replied to this and said they got the full footage from the hotel and there was nothing in those minutes of value. But then why didn't they just keep them in? Why edit them out? Furthermore, the part where she's making hand gestures was slowed down considerably, making it look a lot creepier than it would have in real time. This ties into the theory that the LAPD and the hotel were involved in some type of cover-up together. Because how did the LAPD and the sniffer dogs fail to find her on the roof? The dogs should have picked up her scent to at least the water tank. Were one of the officers involved with her disappearance, or one of the hotel staff maybe? And owing to the hotel's reputation, maybe they didn't want to make things worse, and so they covered up any of their involvement. It was also very strange how the elevator stayed open the whole time Elisa was in there, and as soon as she went out of the frame, it closed rather quickly. People attributed that to bad spirits residing within the hotel, but someone who actually went to the hotel saw that there's a hold button at the bottom of the buttons, which is one of the ones she pressed when she first got into the elevator. So Elisa unknowingly made the elevator stand still for 2 minutes. I mean, I don't know, had she not pressed it, maybe she would have just gone down to her room and called it a day. We don't know. That also rules out the theory that someone was holding the elevator door open on purpose, so maybe there wasn't anyone outside after all. Theory number 3. The third and final theory ties in with the results of her toxicology report, and that is suicide. The report ruled out the possibility she was under the influence of anything. No alcohol or drugs were found in her body. The only thing that was actually found was small traces of her prescription medication that she should have been taking anyway. But based on the fill date of the prescriptions they found in her room, there were a lot more pills in the bottle than there should have been, meaning Elisa wasn't taking her medication properly or had even stopped. Now, based off the information provided by the hotel manager at the time, Amy Price, Elisa was acting strangely. She was initially placed in a room with a few other girls, but she then started putting threatening post-it notes on their bed, saying things like, "Go away, go home, get out," and so on. She would also lock the door and not let the other guests inside their room, so based on how disruptive she was acting, they moved her to a single room. Now, a few nights before her death, she went to a live show and was bothered by something so much so that she wrote a letter and refused to leave until the host of the show read it. Lam was very soon escorted off the property altogether. But this behavior just doesn't seem consistent with the posts I've read on her Tumblr. Elisa seemed like a level-headed girl who was intelligent and just going through it like the rest of us. Now, if Elisa seemed to be acting abnormally, is there a chance she could have taken her own life? I mean, there was no trauma on her body, which makes it seem like she could have gotten into the water tank voluntarily. Had she stopped taking her meds because she was about to end it all? I couldn't tell you. Now, in the grand scheme of things, these theories don't really matter because the coroner's report ruled her death an accidental drowning rather than cannot be determined. Now, I've just thrown a lot of information at you in a very short span of time, and maybe you don't really think any of the theories are true. And I was certainly very pissed when I heard that the ruling was an accidental drowning, because I was like, it doesn't even point that way. Like, how could you even say that? But then we all found out that there's a lot of things that we did not know that were not made public that made the coroner rule it as an accidental drowning. So what didn't we know? Now, those were the viable theories, and I've told you how the case was ruled, and it's not satisfying, let's face it. People were honestly outraged, and they just failed to believe it was an accidental drowning, and none of these theories really satisfy you. All of them just make me question things even more after thinking about them, because there are just so many plot holes throughout. But there are things we didn't know. Now, firstly, when Santiago Lopez went to the water tank, he found the lid open. It was not closed, which is what the LAPD told the public. Now, a closed lid points to murder, it points to intent, it points to someone closing the lid after she went inside. An open lid means that she could have very well gotten in herself. Now, secondly, her family shared that Elisa had gone through periods of trying not to use her medication, and during those times she would become extremely paranoid. She would go into psychosis and think someone was after her trying to hurt her. Her sister shared that there was also even a time she found Elisa hiding under the bed from something which she was paranoid about. So her mental health wasn't conveyed properly to the public. This is a severe type 1 bipolar person who has neglected taking her medications, specifically her antipsychotics. Now, having said all that, the LAPD put together a more holistic explanation for her death that seemed to appease a lot of people. Elisa had already stopped taking her meds or had tapered how much she was taking by the time she got to LA. Her behavior started becoming a bit more erratic and unpredictable, which we saw with the post-it notes, the letter at the live show, and so on. Now, knowing all that, when we see her in the elevator, we're genuinely seeing someone who is in the midst of a manic psychotic break. In her mind, the paranoia of being pursued was very real. In her mind, she was running for her life in this dingy hotel full of very questionable guests. Now, thinking that there was nowhere to go but up, she went to the roof herself and thought that she could hide in the water tank, as that would be the only safe place no one could find her. So she gets in. Within a few minutes of being in there, she must have realized that she's actually stuck and she can't get back out. She can't hoist herself back out since the water levels fluctuate, and so the only thing she can do is paddle and keep afloat for as long as possible. Elisa could have taken her clothes off herself to make floating easier, maybe the weight of the clothes were weighing her down. Now, on the contrary, depending on how long she survived in the water tank, hypothermia would have set in. And in cases of severe hypothermia, a person can experience a hot flash, which makes them feel like they're burning up, so they remove their clothes. And that is it. That was the police's explanation. And now, although that did put my mind at some sort of ease, I still don't think that's the conclusion I hoped for or fully and truly believe. I still have questions. The LAPD had a helicopter search the roof from above as well, and since we now know the lid was open when she was found, how did the helicopter not spot the open latch? I just don't understand how. And forget the open lid, how did she get into the tank in the first place? There are no ladders up there to climb them. The tanks are 4x8 foot tanks propped onto concrete blocks. There's no way she could have gotten up there herself. So did she have help? Could there have been an untraceable drug that she took that didn't show up in the autopsy report? Or maybe it was one that had already broken down by the time she was found. There was also blood pooling around her anus, which people thought could have been a sign of sexual assault, since the conclusions of that test were never published to the public. Even the coroner's report itself first checked cause undetermined and then crossed that out, and 3 days later checked off accidental drowning. Did someone high up in the LAPD come in within those days and tell them to change the results? What happened? Why did they change the results? I feel like with the police's explanation, there are a lot of things that were answered and a lot of things that are really left to be answered. I don't really know what I believe, to be honest. I want to believe that it was an accidental drowning, but I can't put myself obviously in the mind frame of someone who is having a psychotic episode. I can't say things like, oh, but didn't she know that it was irrational to get into the water tank because she couldn't get out? But then I don't know what her mind frame was like at the time. I don't know how paranoid and scared for her life that she truly felt. Either way, you guys, that is the case. Those are the theories, and that was the conclusion. Now let me know what you guys thought of this episode and kind of the idea of this series, and let me know if you want this to be a weekly thing, a bi-weekly thing. It was very fun for me to do and write. Obviously it's not fun to think about her or her family, but it was still fun to try and investigate it myself. Let me know what you think actually happened to her. Do you believe any of the theories? Do you believe the police? Let me know in the comments below. As always, I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye!